Superb. I just want to start off, as I always do, just to thank you and for giving your time. As I always say, it's the greatest gift we can give anyone. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you, Simon. So yeah, I started Legends Life Stories to be able to help, hear other stories, which can then help and inspire others. I love to talk, but I also love to listen. My wife would disagree with that, but I think it is a great skill to have the ability to be able to listen and not just listen, but active listening where you're actually the other person feels like they are being listened to. But yeah, fundamentally, it's just to hear stories, Simon. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear a bit of yours.
Sure thing. Yeah, no, I always think that learning to listen, I'm like you, I've always talked a lot and I had to learn to listen. And I always think that learning to listen is like wearing X-ray specs. You find out an awful lot.
Oh God, but listening, it's like it's a skill. Like it's not something that
Absolutely.
it's not something that comes easy. Like we've all got our opinions and stuff like that, and to have the ability to listen, for me you're a step ahead because what someone said one time when you're talking you're not learning, but when you're listening you're actively learning as well. Yeah, but yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Simon, just a little bit about yourself, about your story, and maybe some
Sure.
hurdles you had to overcome and stuff.
Well, I could talk about anything really, but I suppose on a very sort of big picture level, growing up, my mother had a big extended family and we were the slightly poor relations. And so I wanted to be one of them, not one of us. And I think that was where the sort of grit in the oyster was sowed for me. And then as I grew up a little bit more, and I kind of had this feeling that doing difficult things like going out and being successful, I wanted, possibly from low self-esteem growing up, I wanted to be a big deal, I suppose. But I always figured that, or I always believed, it was a sort of eternal belief of mine, that that happened to special people or other people, not ordinary people like me. So probably that was the grit that got me going, but there was a sort of block there because of that. And that was the one that's getting the self-belief was the bit that took, I acted it and I had bravado and I played the big deal, but inside I wasn't. And for those two things to marry, it's a strange thing, confidence, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you and I feel completely relaxed and confident, and not just to you, to all of your audience as well. And when you have that sort of confidence, it feels normal and natural. But when you don't have it, you can't imagine what that would be like. So that is, I think, that is definitely something you could learn, but you only learn it by stepping out of your comfort zone and trying things out and making mistakes. And I sure did a few of those along the way. Is that sort of what you wanted?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. It's when you saying that, I had that exact same conversation with my wife. It's like she had the self belief in herself, but she didn't have the confidence. So it's good to actually hear like that others are the same because self belief and confidence for me it seemed like the same thing, but it's not. There's a difference there. Because you have the self belief in yourself, but it's taking out the door and starting and getting going, and that takes the confidence, eh?
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good to know as well because like everyone kind of sees a person like as they are just now and what's going on right at this minute, but we don't actually know the kind of hard work and the effort and everything that's had to go on in the background and in life to get to where we are. You know?
That's right. That's right. I mean, I sometimes think if I walk down a crowded street and I see all those people's faces there, and I think that if behind every one of those faces in the world, and there are a lot of people out there, there is an inner world as complex as mine, that it's not surprising that the world is a very complex place. And to get to some um, comfort and peace inside that, I think most people who do difficult things, have a probably quite a complex life. It's just not a straight line drive. There's a lot that's gone on along the way.
Mhm.
And I sometimes used to say that inside there was inside mine anyway, not now, but in my time, it was a dangerous neighborhood. You wouldn't want to go there alone.
Well, is this somewhere where you were brought up and stuff like that?
The neighborhood is the neighbor is I'm talking about my mind,
Oh, got you.
my overactive and over imaginative mind.
Sorry, Simon. I totally missed that. No, no, I get that because
It was a metaphor, John.
oh yeah, I'm still learning. Thank you, Simon. No, no, definitely because like that's probably one of the biggest hurdles in life, isn't it? Is this what's going on in your mind as well and stuff like that, and the because the limitations that we have are sometimes is the ones that we put on ourselves, you know.
I think so, and I think I'm a I really wanted to be a rock star, I think, but I'm a businessman, which kind of has got a sort of dull ring to it. So I've tried to become a bit of a, more of a sort of rock star businessman. But, I talk about quite a lot about, how to be successful in the wider sense of the full world, but including money. There's no shame in wanting to make money. It's a wonderful thing, money, because it is the oil that allows you to do the things that you think of. So it's yeah, that's what I think.
No, definitely because like when people talk about riches, I think a lot of people think it comes in the form of money, but for me, riches is fulfillment. It's doing what you
Yeah,
love.
yeah. I think in whatever way you do it. I've got a I had an interesting conversation with somebody I've known for a long time who did a thing back in the 80s, it probably would have been, or 90s, called the Millionaire MBA. And it never really took off. He was trying to do what guys like me, and to some extent you and people who are on these social medias, is before social media. He was trying to do that. And if he'd done it 10, 20 years later, he'd probably been successful. He was a very capable guy. But it didn't, and it failed. And he went away, and he somehow managed to get enough money to buy a rental property, and he got married and had 2 kids. And he said, look, I just went the other way, and I've got a fairly simple life. When we go on holiday, we stay in hostels, and I've got a few very, very good friends. And I do a lot of things myself and manage our 2 rental properties, and it gives me an income, not very much, but I live within my means. And then we had a conversation that compared our contentment and happiness and how much anxiety we live with. And his 2 old friends, and it was very, very similar. Me with lots and lots, and him with very little. But the thing we had in common is that we'd both learnt to live within our means and try and be a comfortable person, each of us in our own way. And we still had day-to-day anxieties. And his were no more than mine, and mine were no more than his, because he had found a way. The anxieties really, for me, have always come from not being able to pay the bills, or, running out of money or getting short. Those are the financial ones anyway. And he had done his version of getting rid of that by not spending too much and not wanting too much. So I thought that was interesting. So living within your means. And then of course there's an opposite argument to anything that you say in this world, because to build a business, certainly a bigger business, step right outside your comfort zone and go and borrow as much money as you can, because doing things at a bigger level is the same amount of work as doing things at a smaller level. So being
Yeah.
ambitious. So there's 2 sides to it. Live within your means personally, but in your business ways, go beyond your means, that's for sure.
Thank you, Simon. It's you saying that it just shows like it doesn't matter where you are in life. It's just down to the individual and how you want to live your life as well. And that's a key, isn't it? Living within your means.
I think so. I think being successful is about, you know, if you look on the bookshelves of the bookstores in, non-fiction, how to be all the books about how to be successful, from big people like Richard Branson to people just writing books about how they did this, that, or the other. First of all, they all say much the same thing, but really being successful is about being the best person you can possibly be. And
Yeah.
then being able to be clear and have a clear view of where you're going and be able to and to love what you're doing or to at least enjoy what you're doing so that you can spend 16, 18 hours a day or whatever it is that it takes to start,
Yeah.
to do difficult things. So yes, at whatever level you do it,
Yeah.
there's a lot to do. It's hard work but I think what I'm really saying is become the person before you start a business or do difficult things. Become the person first. Become a good leader. Become a good understand your strengths and weaknesses. You started off talking about being a good listener. If you talk too much, be a good listener. Learning the skills of being a really capable. When you meet the really, really great leaders, there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are nice ones and not so nice ones, but they all
Yeah.
got a certain comfort with themselves or a drive within themselves, and they've learnt how to be the best version of them. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of looking inwards as well, isn't it? And just being comfortable with yourself. But I think that also, like, when you are comfortable with yourself, people can buy into that. You know what I mean? They see that, because it's like true leadership. It's like, I want to kind of follow this person. I feel like comfortable with their direction. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if you can be inspirational, fantastic. But everybody's got their different ways of doing things. And the one I always get when I do speeches or TV, oh, Simon, you're so inspirational. And I think because I'm just naturally, I don't know where that comes from, but I'm very, I love ideas and I love how to do things differently. And I still have an imagination and I'm very enthusiastic and enthusiasm is about an idea, about things, is very attractive. So that's my way. But everybody's got a different way. I've met people who are, dull as ditch water, but they've got a way of doing things. Everybody's got their own way, and you've got to find your own way.
Yeah. You've got to find your drive, haven't you? You've got to find the. Yeah, but it's all having all that thing. But yes, yeah, as you said, it's having that start, getting out your comfort zone, just getting out there and starting. Yeah, and that kind of leads, like, what I wanted to talk about next was the fear. A lot of people have that as well. Like, is it something you ever had? It's like a fear, like,
The fear, yeah.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think, I sometimes think that fear is probably the most common emotion. If you really break emotions down, the experience of being a human being. You've got happiness, and if you're happy, enjoy it. You've got what are the mad, sad, glad, and fear. Really, is the one. Because mad is anger. Anger um can be pretty useful actually because it gets things done. So if any of your audience have got a kind of chip on your shoulder or you're feeling a bit angry with the world or whatever, don't worry. It needs taming after a while. You don't want to have rage, which is out of control, but a bit of anger to get things done is good. Mad, sad is the second. This is all the emotions that you can boil emotions down to the way I see it anyway. Sad, the hardest one for me to actually, women are better at being sad. I don't know. Men cover it up with anger often. The sad,
Mhm.
the harder one. Glad, if you, as I say, if you're happy, you're good, and fear. And fear is very common human emotion. And I think learning to deal with that fear is probably what I hear. Follow your fear to find your destiny is
Mhm.
probably true to some extent because if you we all feel it, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal with stress? And obviously, to deal with stress is you can get rid of the thing that's causing you stress. You've got to find out what it is first. So that's a kind of self-awareness. You can go running or you can go meditating or do all of that. But I think for me anyway, a bit of action works. And another thing that works is, and again, these things all have opposites, is be careful not to take on things that cause you anxiety and fear. Um, that aren't getting you anywhere. But on the other hand, definitely take on things that cause you anxiety and fear that are going to get you somewhere. We're
Mhm.
taught as human beings, I think, or we learn growing up that if you have an uncomfortable feeling, fear being the normal one, if you have an uncomfortable feeling, you step quickly back into your comfort zone. But actually, if you stand outside your comfort zone for a reasonable period of time and feel the fear and do it anyway, as who said that? Nike, I think, it said it first. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Or
Yeah.
um, you know, what actually happens is if your comfort zone is a sort of circle around you and you step outside of it, it's like the pebble dropped into the water, the comfort zone, the ripples go out and the comfort zone gets bigger. And I think that's what successful people do is they learn to function with higher levels of fear and anxiety and learn how to deal with that. One of mine was, and everybody has their own way of doing it, one of mine was on one shoulder. I'm very, very serious about what I do and and my projects, and I want them to be the best, and I want them to be successful and all of that stuff. And on the other shoulder, I really don't give a damn because I know that so far I've survived. I probably will survive for a bit longer. And when I eventually go, that's okay as well. So, and as to and me and my ego, it ain't that important, not in the big scheme of things. It'll soon be forgotten in the world. So I'm equally serious and I'm equally light about it. So travel light through life and try and do the best you can for every single thing you're doing.
You think you've always been like that, or is that just something else?
Oh, no, I was a roller coaster. I was a roller coaster. Yeah, quite fearful and roller coaster. Yeah, I was a roller coaster. But, things work out if you keep going. In Japan, they don't have a word. They don't say good luck in Japan. They say keep going, which is probably better advice than good luck.
Right.
You keep going, exactly.
No, definitely. Like, it's being comfortable in the uncomfortable, I think, as well with fear, because fear does it makes us feel uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
it's just remembering why you're doing it. It's the why as well.
All things will pass. People have been under enormous anxiety. They've fought in wars and enjoyed it. You can be in very difficult times and you can find a way of enjoying it. And you meet those people who, under great pressure, seem to carry on and enjoy things. I like that. I call them desert island people. You know, those people who always seem to be cheerful, regardless of what happens. And I think if I was on a desert island, even better than somebody who knew how to build a house so you could live in or go fishing, those would be useful skills. But a good personality that is cheerful and generous and not contentious, which I've been in my time the wrong way. That's who you'd really like to be on a desert island with. And in the same way, that's who you want to be in business with, and that's who you want to be dealing with on a daily basis. But that requires maturity because, when your back's against the wall, especially financially, especially if you've got starting small businesses or big businesses, when your back's against the wall, it's very easy to behave not so well, and I've behaved not so well at times. But with maturity, that's what you have to work at, maturity. So even when your back's against the wall, you still carry on behaving well. Carry on
Yeah,
regardless, chaps.
yeah, regardless, yeah. No, definitely. It's about keeping that true to yourself, and it's like because, like as you said, it's easy when we're under pressure to kind of scurry and find ways to make things work. But it's just trying to just remember again why we're doing this, and have that belief that if we're doing it properly and we're doing it right, that we're going to get there. It's going to be okay.
Exactly. And deeply philosophical, really, that we were lucky enough at that, first event of our life, our conception. We were lucky enough to be the one in 30 million, I believe is the statistic, that got a chance at life. So you're already, every single one of you, you're already lucky. We're all lucky. We're all very lucky to be experiencing all of this. So when you realize that, and you learn that you remember that there's nobody came at the beginning and said, I'm going to promise you a rose garden. It ain't like that. It's life is not easy for anybody. It's a lot of people have a lot of difficulties along the way. And when you realize that, it's the great realization. I'm talking about realizing that life is difficult, that business is difficult, that people are difficult, everything is difficult. And when you realize then that's normal, then you can make your way through it. Try and make it easier along the way. And you can.
definitely. Well, thank you, Simon. I've got a couple more questions if you don't mind. So looking now, but what would you feel is your greatest personal, like for yourself, achievement, something that you're the most proud of that you've done on your own, yours, that is yours, sorry.
Well, it depends which shoulder you look on. You know, on this shoulder, what does it matter? What does it matter what I've done? You know, on this shoulder, I'd say, you know, this is the shoulder that doesn't give a damn about anything. I'd say that, you know, becoming the calmer, more sensitive person, the more decent person that I am today, before I get too old, is probably my greatest achievement, becoming the person that I have, because it was a roller coaster ride for me internally. In terms of external achievements, I reinvented myself a whole number of times in my life. I started off, I had two English O levels, two GCSEs, so I had no background. I was a roadie. I made, I got into the TV business, selling television rights around the world. I made sports films. I was going to one time going to start at the beginning of extreme sports. That was going to be the world I was going to be in. And in between each one of these things, there was sort of, you know, very down periods where, you know, depressed sometimes and, you know, how am I going to get out of this next hole? And then I decided that I was going to put everything on the line. I had a couple of $100,000 tied up in my apartment in London. You know, house prices gone up, and I determined that I was going to put that onto a new project because I was unemployable and I was going to start something. Yo Sushi came to the top of the pile, Japanese conveyor belt sushi in the days before the internet. And somebody told me about this thing that happened in Japan. I went to have a look at it, and 2 years later, I opened the first Yo Sushi on Poland Street in Soho, which had cost £1 million, and I owned 90% of it, which is a story in itself. But I owned with 200,000, I own 90% of this business. I just called in every favor and put myself on the line. In fact, I think one of the reasons I was able to do it is that Sony had given me 4 old-fashioned big box television sets to put Japanese television on in the first restaurant. Honda had lent me one Honda Jaro canopy motorbike, which we had painted up to test it. And All Nippon Airlines had upgraded me once when I went to Japan to do the research the first time. I remember writing to them and said, I'm so grateful for you doing this, and I'm going to make you my official sponsors. And if I don't hear back from you in the next 7 days, I'll assume you agree. Of course, they never wrote back. Everybody and their sister thought that these were my backers behind me. So
Yeah.
it was a sort of great confidence in what I had. You know, I remember asking the people who'd supplied all the conveyor belts and all that business to give me some extra credit after we opened because money was coming in. We were hit fairly quickly on. And they told me years later that the reason they'd done it is that they said, well, we thought that it was Sony, Honda, and All Nippon Airlines. The money was completely safe. So, you know, that's what happened. So the answer to your question, what am I most proud of? I think that from opening that first restaurant in Poland Street in Soho on January the 22nd, 1997, to which nobody came in the first 2 weeks, and then the second Saturday, there was a queue down the block, which didn't go down for a year. Doing that was the proudest thing, I think, when I look back at the younger me, because everything that I've done since, whether it's been, you know, the Dragon's Den or television or the Edinburgh Festival or living out here in Asia or the hotels, everything that I've done, the fashion business, it's all stemmed from that moment. And I sometimes say to my family, I said, well, I've got a great deal of admiration for that young man who was, well, I say he was young. I was 45 when I opened Yo Sushi, and that was 30 years ago nearly. And yeah, I've got a lot of admiration for that young man and his persistence.
Yeah, definitely. Like just what I heard you say there as well. It's like calling in these favors and stuff like that. But when you're calling in these favors, it's because of the groundwork you've done before. It's the networking you've done before. You've been there for other people, and yeah, and it's okay to do that, and it's allowing letting people know that it's okay to ask for help. You know.
Sure, no, So that's part of it. But another part of it is the, the enthusiasm and the excitement and the belief. What I was able to do in that first year of sushi is to get everybody to believe that this was going to be an enormous success. And people want to be part of enormous successes. And I got people to believe that. 90% of the time I believed it. And 5% I wobbled, and another 5% was sheer terror that I'd lose everything. So, but it could have gone wrong, and it could have gone wrong, and I knew that. What would have happened? Interesting question for me. What would have happened if it had all gone wrong? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I hope I would have had the courage to start over and to do something else, but I don't know the answer to that. Never will do.
I believe you would have done, because sometimes, like,
Okay.
no, but just with what's happened with the business, I just feel like sometimes we don't realise what we're capable of until we have to do it. You know what I mean? And it's dusting ourselves down. But again, like, you didn't focus on that, did you? You were focused on, this is going to work. I believe in it. You know what I mean? And that almost that superpower to keep going and making it work.
I think that's one part of it. That the enthusiasm, the belief, the passion, all of that, that's 50%. But the other 50% is making good decisions and the decisions you make as you go along and what you're able to achieve, the nitty gritty of it. You don't build businesses on passion and enthusiasm alone. You build them on, or even resilience, you build them on good decisions and being very, very thorough and very well researched and doing things really well. And probably whatever that word is, the LUCK word, I think there were a couple of times when I had to roll, a 4 or above to stay there more than one time. And I did roll a 4 and above. So, there's happenstance as well. But of course, Gary Player, that famous golfer, used to say, he said, it's a funny old thing, this game of golf, he said, but I just find that the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Like, even when you were a wee bit older as well, like 45, but you were learning as well. Like, obviously decisions had to be made, but it could have been the smaller things you were doing in life, the decisions you were making that was leading to those bigger ones, and giving you that.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah, it's a complicated old world out there. But I never met anybody um, who went out to do what I did, which is to do what you really wanted to do, who had a dream and went out to do it. I never met anybody who really regretted it, regardless of whether they succeeded or failed, because you can always restart and do something again and you learn from it. But I met many, many people who later in life looked back and said, I wish I'd stood up and done. There's a few things that I have in my memory that I wish I'd done when I had the chance and taken more of a risk. I think that's my experience.
Yeah, 'cause it's better to have tried and failed and have the regrets of not doing it, I suppose, eh?
Yep, yep. But then there's an argument, as I say, there's an argument the other way, be careful as well. But yes, but that's been my way, certainly.
So obviously, like, learning what you have and stuff like that. If you were talking to, like, your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I've been asked that question many times, and usually the answer is different every time, but I have no idea what I'm going to say now. What advice would I give my younger self? I think it would be something along the lines of, it's all right, mate. It's going to be okay. Just keep going. Going to be okay. And you don't know what's coming. It's going to be a lot of fun, but you're going to have to go through a lot of shit to get there. That's what I'd say. If I told him some of the things that happened along the way, he'd be going, wow.
No, because what I was going to get at was, I think we limit kids. I think limit kids with our own fears, and younger people, like, it's just always like, just get their steady job and just be happy in that sense. But I think we put limits on kids and younger adults as well. I think we don't give them credit for what they're capable of. I think they're, especially nowadays with the advances.
Well, I think, the real in the West, which is, difficult. History will judge it as being a difficult time we're going through at the moment. And I think the real education is, I don't have to advocate that education will change. It's going to change anyway. It's already changing. In Scandinavia, teachers have the same status as doctors, and you hear in the educational world, because I've looked at it, is this thing they call EI is emotional intelligence, and that's what's going to be needed in this new AI world, and in addition to all the technology. And I think that Eric Schmidt, who ran Google for many years, once told me that their perception that is that in a 1 hour classroom, the teacher would only be up front talking for 3-4 minutes, that it'll all be self-learning on incredibly good programs, as creative as the best mini-series you've ever seen. And then he'd be there to support and help people. So education, and when, reading, writing, and arithmetic is taught at the same, when emotional intelligence is given the same effort as reading, writing, and arithmetic, then you'll be producing really good human beings who are able to cope with this complex world we live in, because the information stuff is going to be here. I mean, literally here. So you'll have human beings, the new superhuman beings that will come out of AI, which of course is scary to a lot of people. To me, it's not scary at all. It's a fantastic thing that's going to happen for human beings, and it could be the healing of wars and all of that stuff. It's amazing. It's going to be, and it success around the world, not just in some countries, but for everybody, is going to eventually bring peace and prosperity and allow us to go out and explore the universe and all the exciting things that's going to flow from that. But we've got to find a way that AI is going to create enormous wealth, and we have to find a way of sharing that wealth out so that it is spread across not just our different levels of society, but across the world as well. Because otherwise, what you're seeing at the moment, without getting too political about it, is a sort of form of revolution. People going, "I've had enough," and it's not right and proper and fair. And actually, rich people will embrace, the haves, if you like, will embrace spreading it around eventually, because otherwise it will come back and slap them in the face. I don't know if it's absolutely true, but I think that, was it William Wilberforce who abolished slavery? And the slavery was abolished in America by William Wilberforce, not because everybody felt it was wrong, but because the people who employed the slaves realized that if they didn't do something about it, it was going to come back and slap them in the face. And I think that's the same with sharing out the wealth that AI and modern technology will create in the world.
What, like an uprising type thing? Like,
You can't have an ordered society with an underclass, not in the modern transparent world that we live in. Definitely there'd be different classes of society, different levels of achievement, but I think it has to be a fair society, and that is, I mean, you can call me a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, and I think it will happen. And I can imagine a universal wage of some sort, a different way of looking at all of that. In Scandinavia, they don't have that differential. You can't tell what class somebody's from or background or any of that stuff. Actually, in Scandinavia, there was a guy called Yanti at the beginning of the last century. Anti-law, there's 10 Yanti laws, and they're all basically the same. And the anti-law says, don't try and be better than your neighbor. And so you have more of an equal society in Scandinavia, and people don't show off about wealth. It means, I mean, Denmark, they always say that if you hire a builder to come and do a job at your house, he always turns up on time. He doesn't charge you unreasonable extras, and the job always gets done. He tells you what's going on, which you don't get in most builders in the world. And so they're model societies, really. And Switzerland, of course, has an incredible society because they have they do have a parliament, they have an administration who administers what the people want. And I think that will happen as well in Western societies. People say, oh, the people don't know what they want. They're no good. They make the wrong decisions, like Brexit is one example that's given. But actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the people make the wrong decisions. It's their decisions, and they'll learn. And with education, they'll learn as well.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
I'm an optimist for the future. There's a lot to go through, but I am an optimist for the future.
Yeah, definitely are. Yeah, I totally agree, and I look forward to it. And you just hope as well that it is, and it gets played out well, and there is opportunity for everyone because, as you said, there is that change in people's mindset. They are thinking differently. They are not seeing outside the box almost. You know what I mean? And they've got their own views and visions. You know.
I think there's always been opportunity for everybody, certainly in this last 50 years. But I think, some people don't want that opportunity. Society's going to change, and the world's going to change, and change creates difficult times. But I'm an optimist. So I think it'd be great. Anyway, I'll be long gone, and you'll be there for a while longer, and then your children will be there. We should be doing things that work for them.
Definitely, that's the hope, isn't it? Like that you're leaving the planet in a better position as well. And listen, just what you're saying there, it gives me the hope as well. It gives me inspiration, but for the kids and
Good.
that as well.
Well,
Mm.
that sounds pretty good. Well, thank you very much for having me.
No, no, no. Honestly, Simon, it's been awesome. It's good to kind of hear your point of view as well, and the things that you've had to face as well. As I say, people look at you at face value and think, "Oh, it's got it easy," um, but it's not always the case. I mean, you've had to work to get where you have, and
Oh,
sometimes
it's certainly easier than it used to be, that's for sure.
it's the reaping the fruits of your labour. You know what I mean? It's like that's what it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? You've put in that effort, that hard work, and taking those risks, and it's risk and reward.
Sure. Well, thanks, John.
No, no,
I better
thank
go and
you.
have my breakfast.
Oh yeah, it's pretty early where you are. But nah, thank you, Simon. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. All the best, and yeah, good luck.
Let me know how it goes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Simon. Bye now.